everybody, MichaelBtheGameGenie here, and today on Game Genie Reviews, we're going to be taking a look at the new Namco Legacy Edition Home Arcade from Arcade1Up. So that's right guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the Namco Legacy Edition from Arcade1Up. This is one of the Legacy Edition cabs that I initially said I wasn't going to purchase, as I already had the Pac-Man 40th Anniversary cabinet and didn't think that this was enough of an upgrade in order for me to purchase. However, there were some specific improvements that I was interested in, and as soon as the cabinet became available to purchase in my area, my FOMO kicked in and here we are. Anyways, let's take a look at the cabinet and find out if I was happy with my decision to upgrade and if this is a cabinet you guys would be interested in as well. Believe it or not, Arcade1Up made another Pac-Man. Well, sort of, as this isn't officially a Pac-Man cabinet, it just looks like one, as it is actually the Namco Legacy Edition. Of course, what is the most iconic game on this cabinet? Well, of course, it is the king of the arcades, Pac-Man, and like I said so many times, Pac-Man is a cash cow for Arcade1Up, so of course they're going to keep milking it. Like I mentioned when this was first announced, I wasn't interested in picking this cabinet up, as I already had the Pac-Man 40th Anniversary cabinet, but when it became available, a couple of things changed my mind. One, of course, was the way it looked. In my Pac-Man 40th review, I talked about how they were finally using the correct form factor for a Pac-Man cabinet, but didn't use the iconic yellow side art, and talked about possibly getting a skin from a company down the line, but the wood grain was still very sharp looking. Well, I still stick by the wood grain being very sharp looking, but I really did want that original art. I mean, my arcade is all about the atmosphere, and just having the game playable and not having a Pac-Man cab with the correct side art was killing me. So when I saw how this cabinet looked and that I could buy it, I put my Pac-Man 40th up for sale and placed my order. Of course, I love the side art and the distinct Pac-Man side panel form factor they use for this cabinet. The yellow side panel is iconic and in my opinion is just so good looking, especially with the bright red T-molding along the edges of the cabinet. Other than the side panel being yellow, another change from the Pac-Man 40th cab is that the iconic side art is placed lower on the cabinet, more accurate to the initial offering. Much like with the Pac-Man 40th Anniversary, the marquee is recessed into the cabinet and not up to the edges of the side panel. This means that from certain viewing angles, the marquee will be obstructed. Like we discussed in my Pac-Man 40th review, we assumed this was done to make sure there were no line of sight issue for the viewing angle while standing in front of the cabinet. Too bad this wasn't more of a priority with some of their other recent offerings. The marquee itself is beautiful and looks just as good as the one that came with the Pac-Man 40th cabinet. One difference that the camera may not pick up is that the LED they appear to have used has a bright white look instead of the traditional daylight used in all their other marquees, and gives this marquee a yellowish tint. It drove me nuts at first, and I assumed it was a mistake at the factory and my OCD was in overdrive, until someone told me the original used a more yellow bulb and they were just recreating that look, and now mysteriously, I don't notice it at all anymore. The front kick plate is one of only 3 Arcade1Up cabs to have a colored kick plate, as it is yellow to match the rest of the cabinet. The kick plate also doesn't have the games listed and features the new coin door decal, which looks great. The other thing that caught me off guard was that there was still a black J panel that looked out of place, and I asked why not just make that yellow as well. Turns out, on the original cabinet, the control panel, which was black, hung out over the edge of the cabinet, and making a black J panel almost recreates that exact look, so kudos to Arcade1Up on your attention to detail. The riser is really cool, taking the iconic screen images from Pac-Man and wrapping them right around the riser. I really dig it, but personally I would have preferred if they did what they did with the Miss Pac-Man and Atari Legacy cabs and made the riser an extension of the cabinet. Other than that, this one gets a thumbs up. The control panel is beautiful and essentially identical to the one that came with the Pac-Man 40th Anniversary cabinet. Well, the artwork and button placement is at least, but gone are the color buttons and replaced with all white here. I miss my red fire button for Galaga. The controls all work extremely well and for every game on the cabinet. Nothing feels out of place or ham-fisted here control-wise, and every game seems like it was made specific for this cabinet, and not that awkward multicade feeling. especially the title game Pac-Man, where you live and die by making accurate movements at the exact right time, and I'm happy to report the controls work great here. The screen is surrounded again by that iconic Pac-Man bezel, just like on the Pac-Man 40th cabinet, and has everything you would expect from the recreation of the classic arcade cabinet, including the instructions on the side, which is always such a nice touch. The screen itself is the 17-inch BOE monitor, the exact same as on the Pac-Man 40th Anniversary cabinet. They went with a vertical monitor here because of course Pac-Man, the title game, is a vertical game, but 11 out of the 12 games are all vertical, except for Pac-Man, which is horizontal and looks kinda small. What's weird is that on all 4 legacy cabs, not one nailed having all 12 games match the aspect ratio of the monitor included. It's only 1 out of 12 here, so not a huge deal, and honestly, once you start playing and get into it, you kind of forget about the screen size. There is a major issue with the screen from the Pac-Man 40th cab, but it has more to do with options, and we will get back to that when we discuss the games and gameplay. Overall, the screen is bright and vibrant and brilliantly displays the gameplay from all 12 included games. Yeah guys, a big reason I got this was the major art upgrade. Being able to see the iconic, classic, original Pac-Man cabinet with the correct art in the correct form factor recreated in the 3/4 scale by Arcade1Up. But that isn't the only reason, as you also get an upgrade of 8 games to 12, plus a much needed improvement that I kind of gave up hope on happening with an update to my Pac-Man 40th cab. Just like the other legacy cabinets, this one comes included with 12 iconic arcade hits from the Namco library. Before anyone asks, no, Miss Pac-Man isn't included on this cabinet, but if you want just about every other Pac-Man game ever released, you are in luck. This cabinet features 6 iconic Pac-Man titles just like the Pac-Man 40th cab, with everything from Pac-Man, Pac-N-Pal to Pac-Mania. It's all here, and it all plays really well with no slowdown or timing issues, as has been reported and argued about on other cabs that I'm aware of. It all feels right to me. This cabinet actually has all 7 games from the Pac-Man 40th cabinet, as it also has Galaga as well, plus 4 additional games, so it's starting to get clearer why I made the switch. Of course, Galaga is a must-have cabinet by itself, so it's a slam dunk to be included on this cabinet. Plus, it even has the game it spawned from in Galaxium, and while that might not be everybody's cup of tea, I kinda dig it. Speaking of digging it, Dig Dug 1 and 2 are also on this cabinet. How wild is it for those of us buying these cabs for years who said, I can't believe we don't have Dig Dug on a 3/4 scale arcade, and now here I stand where I have it on 2 separate machines. Last but not least, we have Rompers, which is a game I never heard of before, but it's fun, it's cute as hell, and it will steal your heart. Trust me. One thing to note is that this legacy cab doesn't have an in-game pause option or quick exit to the menu screen like on the Capcom and Midway legacy cabinets. I'm fine with no pause button, as majority of these are arcade score chasers and won't last long enough to necessitate needing to take a break unless you are Billy Mitchell or something and can play one game of Pac-Man for like 3 hours. The fast exit I did kind of like, but here it's the traditional hold player 1 for 5 seconds to exit. While we do not have the pause or quick exit, we do have options for each game that can be triggered by pressing the player 2 button on the main menu screen. These options typically include difficulty, setting the number of lives, and the score at which you can earn an extra life, as well as most importantly, turn pixel smoothing on/off. Just like all the other Namco cabinets Arcade1Up have recently released, this cab comes shipped with pixel smoothing on, and it basically looks like the video has a slight blur. I get that this is to try to make the pixels more rounded and look more like they did on a classic CRT, and some people might like that, but it should never be the base option without a way to turn it off. All 7 games on the Pac-Man 40th cab suffered from this pixel smoothing, and we were told an update would be coming to provide us with an option to turn this feature off, but at almost a year out from when the cabinet was initially sold, with a new unit out, I gave up hope this would ever happen and decided my best course of action was to upgrade to the legacy cabinet and to play these games the way I wanted, with pixel smoothing turned off, and honestly, it feels so good to see these games clearly, finally. So what I want to do now is give you some gameplay from all 12 included games so you can see how they look and perform on this cabinet. I do want to warn you, I have turned off pixel smoothing, so objects on screen may appear clearer than they did before. Ah, wow, this moves fast. Oh no. So guys, that's my look at the Namco Legacy Edition from Arcade1Up. I personally am very happy with my decision to upgrade, as the look of the cabinet, additional games, gameplay options such as turning off pixel smoothing made this a no-brainer to replace my Pac-Man 40th cabinet. If you currently don't own a Pac-Man cabinet from Arcade1Up, this is clearly the best one to get on the market today for the reasons I just listed. But if you do own one and are considering upgrading, make sure those same reasons are enough to justify the additional expense to upgrade your cabinet. Anyways guys, let me know in the comments below what you think of the Namco Legacy Edition from Arcade1Up. Thank you so very much for watching. This is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time.